I started to say good morning like I usually do, and then I thought, I've been thinking, uh, maybe maybe I should just say hello since so many people around the world are watching this at different times. But for me, it's good morning and it's happy Easter because today is Easter Sunday here in, I guess everywhere, but wherever the time where it is for you is different than the time it may be for somebody else. But happy Easter anyway, and good morning or good evening, whatever the case may be. Hmm. I'm drawn to talk this morning in response to my talk yesterday about the new way and about Sue's talk that I shared with everybody on YouTube and Facebook. And I'm entitling today's talk, God Doesn't Care About Morality. And I fully realize, as I say that it's not a complete truth. Because there's a lot of things that I consider very immoral, personally, that I do believe matter. But once upon a time, I did an unofficial survey of, I don't know, 15, 20, maybe 25 people over the course of several days. I was actually working in a public place at the time, so it was fairly easy to engage in conversation with people. And I asked the question, what is morality to you? And I don't remember the exact numbers, but overwhelmingly, the answers had to do with sexuality. Overwhelmingly. People, at least here in the United States, I can't say that that's true around the world, but at least here in the United States, people equate morality with who we love and how we love. And I'm suggesting to you in the title of today's talk that God doesn't really care who or how. God does care that we love. Morality, as I see it, from God's perspective, if God had a perspective, would be that we love each other and that we share our love and that we experience joy in expressing and experiencing our loving. Because that's what life is all about. One writer wrote, when I was talking about the new way, if all houses of praise were like that, the new way, attendance would skyrocket. When the preconditions of entrance are eliminated, barriers to love, peace, light, and joy fall away like old skin. Oh boy, can I say aloud amen to that one. But so many times, at least here in US culture, I don't think it's as true in European culture, for example, or South Latin American culture, or African culture, or Asian culture, or, well, I don't know what, I think probably not Australian culture either, but I don't know. I don't live in those places. I live here. And to make a universal statement is difficult because people have different perceptions in different areas of the world. And that's okay. It's wonderful, in fact. But so many times here in the United States, people are excluded and, excommunicated almost because their expression of their sexuality doesn't fit what is considered normal or appropriate. And I'm telling you, that has done a tremendous harm to the human psyche, to our consciousness. And I can speak here not in general about other people. I know what it's done to me. I know how I've held and viewed my own sexual nature. And I've mentioned this before. There's always been a lot of shame, things that you just don't talk about, things that you have to hide from other people as far as the truth about them. The simple thing of touching yourself sexually is considered by many people a no-no. But churches, places where people need to come to discover aspects of their own humanity and their own divinity, which is what the New Way is about, which is why I'm there. It's an not an exclusive thing. It's an inclusive group of people that don't make our journeying together about how we love and how we choose to love and who we choose to love. I think I've mentioned in a previous video, I don't really remember specifically, but probably I did, the only thing sexual that I think I really still have an issue with, and maybe it's my issue, although I don't think so, and that's of course pedophilia. I don't think adults should be having sex with children that don't know enough, that mess with their innocence. But this whole attack on human sexuality as adults has created so much guilt and so much shame and so much separation in our world. I don't believe it's of God to do that. And I know there are scriptures in the Bible for sure that seem to attack men with men or women with women, etc., etc. Give me a break. Give me a break. We're all human. And if there's any area in the United States and perhaps around the world that we have been wounded, it's in the innocence of our sexual nature. I was never allowed to explore when I was young. I suppose I was allowed, but I didn't feel that I was allowed. And all of my life, I've had to deal with the guilt and the shame of my own sexuality. And much of the time I've shut it off. And it's probably the single area of my life that I feel still most wounded and most not whole. Because I have so many rules that are part of me on what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. And I think the only real appropriateness, when it comes right down to it from God's perspective, is it loving? Is it truthful? Is it compassionate? Is it joyful? Is it kind? These are the questions of real morality, of real ethics in dealing with our sexuality. Whatever two adult human beings decide to explore or express with each other is between them and God. Because when love is in it, God is in it. And it has nothing to do with anything else. Those that love know God. Those that don't love don't know God. Period. End of sentence. There's nothing more that needs to be added. But yet, religions have long added rules. And the rules have nothing to do with loving, have nothing to do with knowing God. It has to do with control. Because if people feel guilty and can be shamed, they do this with politicians, by the way, here in the United States anyway. They get them in sexually compromising positions, and then, they threaten to make it public because of the Puritan ethic in the United States. Of course, money works better, but they do use sex. And people don't want to admit if they're gay, for example, and they stay in the closet with their sexuality. And I don't believe that sexuality needs to be put on a pedestal and make it all about sexuality, but it's just a part of life. And we've made it bigger than life itself so many times here in America, here in the United States. So many times in our churches, it's about something other than what it needs to be about. I had a wonderful conversation with a man yesterday who is a Christian and part of the Republic, and I'll be talking about that and again, one of these days I'll get to it again. Anyway, I think we came to an agreement that Jesus was not trying to put himself on a pedestal and say, look at me, I'm God and you're not. The message of Jesus was to determine and to develop and to see and reawaken to our own divinity. And when we put morality equating to sexuality on that, if we have areas that we're wounded and we need to explore, my God, that hurts our development of knowing ourselves as a divine being. And it's the opposite of what Jesus came to do. He came to teach us to look at ourselves and to know what we are. The things that I do, you can do too. To see our own innocence, to see our own divine nature, and to know that we are not limited except in our own minds. Except in our own minds. That's where our limitations come in. That's where our separation comes in. And that's why religion has made such an attack against human sexuality, making it the moral issue when it is not a moral issue. It's only a moral issue when you're forcing your sexuality on someone else. They did not have either the ability to make their own decision or rape, that which is an act of violence. That's not sexuality, that's violence. But the violence exists because of the guilt and the shame that surrounds our sexuality and the fact that that we've made it limited. And I've done it too, to myself. To myself, I've done it. I'm scared to death sometimes. Well, not to death, but I'm scared. Lots of fear and anxiety comes up around my sexuality because that's so embedded in how I was raised and what I was taught when I was just a young child. Anyway, this is a difficult subject. It's a very difficult subject for me because it touches my wounds that I still have. And I don't know the path totally to healing the wounds, except I have learned to accept myself and my own sexual expression, most of which is by myself, because I still have trouble relating to another human being in that area. There's still discomfort there for me. There shouldn't be, but there is. And I openly admit that. And I want to encourage each one of you in your sexuality to express it with freedom and innocence, and to express it as love, because that's really what it's about. That's really what morality is about. It's about loving or not loving. And if it's loving, it's okay with God. I really believe that, and it's certainly okay with me. I went over a little bit this morning, and that's all I'm going to share with you for now. I hope something that I've said makes sense to somebody, and please let me know if it does, because I want to encourage you to realize above all else that you are loved by God and always have been, and it has nothing to do with your sexuality. Nothing. It has only to do with your loving yourself and loving those that choose to share their love with you, that you choose to share yours with them. That's all it is. God bless you, and namaste. Thank you for listening.